I spent 5 years trying to convince myself I was just the HVAC guy. A quiet rental house, a beat-up truck, school runs, service calls, nothing special. Then, one Thursday morning, inside a crowded elementary school gym on base, my 10-year-old son asked me to help someone. 12 seconds later, 3 soldiers were on the floor, everyone was staring at me, and the life I'd built was cracked wide open. By the next morning, a colonel was standing on my front porch calling me by a rank I hadn't used in years. Let me tell you what really happened at that school assembly. Our mornings were always the same. I clung to that routine like it was a life raft. Alarm at 6:15, coffee on, pack Noah's lunch, shake him awake, pretend he didn't already wake up to my footsteps. He'd stumble into the kitchen with his hair sticking up the same way he had since kindergarten. "Morning, Dad," he'd mumble, dropping into his chair. Same chipped bowl, same knockoff cereal, same backpack dumped by the door. People in town knew me as Noah's dad, or Dan, the AC guy. They knew I used to be in the Army, in that vague way civilians talk about any uniform. They didn't know anything about the rooms I used to work in, the ones with no windows and too many screens. They didn't know about the folder in some classified cabinet with my name on it and whole paragraphs blacked out. I liked it that way. "Don't forget, today's the assembly," Noah said around a mouthful of cereal. "You promised you'd come." "I'll be there. Service Appreciation Day. How can I miss it?" He gave me that little salute he'd made up when he was 5, 2 fingers to his temple, then pointing at me. Our code. "I see you. I'm here." I tapped my forehead back and pointed at him. That should have been the most exciting part of our day. I didn't know yet that everything after would be the reason someone in a 4-star office started dusting off my file. The base elementary school looked like every other one I'd ever seen. Beige cinderblock walls, faded posters about kindness and perseverance, smell of floor cleaner and coffee from the PTA table. The gym was packed. Parents in folding chairs, kids on the floor in matching school t-shirts, teachers doing crowd control with the strained smiles of people one shriek away from a headache. I stayed near the back wall, hands in my pockets where I could see the whole room. Some habits you never lose. Noah sat with his class on the floor, turning around every 30 seconds to make sure I was still there. Every time he spotted me, his shoulders relaxed a little. The principal tapped the microphone until the feedback squealed. "Okay, everyone, let's welcome our special guests from the 22nd Medical Brigade." Polite adult applause, half-hearted clapping from kids. A line of soldiers in medical uniforms walked out. Among them was a young woman in scrubs under her jacket, hair pulled back so tight it had to hurt. Her name tape read Ortega. I'd seen her at the base clinic a couple of times, always moving fast, always tired. The kind of person who smiles at kids even when her own eyes look like they haven't seen sleep in days. Noah nudged the kid next to him. "That's the medic who helped Mrs. Parker when she fainted. He'd told me about that weeks ago." She stepped up to the mic with a stack of note cards. Her hands shook a little. "Good morning. I'm Specialist Maria Ortega. I'm a combat medic with the 22nd Medical Brigade. Her voice caught, then steadied. "I take care of your soldiers. Sometimes that's a bandage and some Motrin. Sometimes it's worse." Some adults nodded. Plenty of kids checked out mentally. I watched her eyes flick for half a second to the side of the gym. 3 soldiers leaned against the wall near the equipment closet. 2 men, 1 woman. Unit shirts from the same brigade. The tall one with the buzz cut, Ramsey on his chest, said something under his breath. The broader one, Dunn, laughed too quickly. The woman, Hayes, forced a smile and stared at the floor. You don't have to hear the words to recognize the dynamic. Pack around a target, jokes with an edge, someone already braced for impact. Ortega finished her little speech, voice flattening as she hit the safe phrases about service and teamwork. If you weren't looking closely, you'd think she was just nervous. If you'd ever served, you'd see the tight shoulders, the controlled breathing, the way she stepped away from the mic just a bit too fast. She was trying to get small, and the 3 at the wall were waiting for that. When the principal dismissed the crowd to activity stations, the gym turned into controlled chaos. Teachers led classes out in lines. Parents drifted toward the exits. Kids scattered toward bandaging teddy bears, sitting in the back of an ambulance, playing with stethoscopes. Noah's group headed toward the ambulance outside. He looked back at me 3 times before he disappeared through the doors. I stayed in the gym. Part of it was habit. I don't like leaving a room until I understand the angles. Part of it was something else. Ramsey and his buddies peeled off the wall the second the crowd thinned. Ortega gathered her note cards, eyes on the floor, and started to move toward her assigned table. They intercepted her halfway. "Doc," Ramsey drawled, close enough that their shoulders almost brushed. "Great speech, almost made me cry." Dunn snorted. "Yeah, you forget the part where you almost killed that guy?" Ortega's jaw clenched. "I have a station to get to, Sergeant," she said quietly. He shifted just enough to block her path. "Not touching. Not yet." "Relax," he said. "We're just talking. Off-duty. Friendly." Hayes shifted her weight, arms crossed, eyes darting. "Sergeant, we should set up," she said under her breath. "Kids will be back any minute." Ramsey ignored her. "Funny thing about complaints," he went on. "Paper gets lost. People forget. And the ones who file them," he leaned in, "they still have to come to work with the rest of us." From the bleachers, a couple of PTA moms glanced over, saw uniforms talking to a uniform, and looked away. Military business. Not their lane. Teachers were busy corralling kids near the doors. Nobody wanted to be the first civilian to step between soldiers. I told myself the same thing. I'd walked away from that world. It wasn't my job anymore. Then I heard a small voice behind me. "Dad?" Noah stood just inside the gym doors, little paper cup of water in his hand, eyes locked on the scene by the wall. His group must have looped through the hydration station and come back. He wasn't supposed to be here. He should have been outside, learning how to wrap fake bandages. But there he was, watching 3 grown men close in on a woman who'd done nothing but show up and do her job. "Why are they talking to her like that?" he asked. My first instinct was the same one everyone else in that gym had already followed. Look away, pretend I didn't see, tell him it was just soldier stuff. I couldn't make the words come out. Ramsey had braced one hand on the wall beside Ortega's head, leaning in just enough to own the space. Dunn had shifted so his shoulder almost brushed her arm. Hayes had gone a shade paler, caught between wanting to vanish and not wanting to join the target. "You think the Inspector General's going to save you?" Ramsey murmured, loud enough to carry. "You think anyone believes your little stories over my record?" Ortega's voice shook, but she kept it level. "Please move," she said. "I'm just trying to do my job." "Dad?" Noah said again, softer now. "Can't you help her?" 10 words. That's all it took to knock down the wall I'd spent years building between who I'd been and who I was pretending to be. He didn't see a retired officer with classified operations behind him. He just saw his father, the man who fixed broken air conditioners and Sunday pancakes, and he believed with absolute certainty that I could fix this too. I put my coffee cup on a chair, carefully. To anyone watching, it was nothing. To me, it was the sound of a switch flipping. The walk from the back wall to where they had her take a boxed in took maybe 10 seconds at a normal pace. I made it take 12. Slow enough not to spook anybody, fast enough that Noah didn't have time to think I'd changed my mind. My hands stayed visible, shoulders relaxed, every part of me screaming to tighten up, to measure angles and distances like I used to, but I kept it buried under a worn-out dad posture. "Sergeant," I said when I was close enough. "Specialist. Corporal." Ramsey's eyes slid over me like I was a gnat. "You need something?" he asked. The "sir" he didn't say hung in the air. I kept my eyes on Ortega. "You okay?" For a second, she didn't answer. Then she looked up, right at me. "I'm trying to get to my station," she said. "Sergeant Ramsey and Sergeant Dunn are talking to me." Her wording was careful, years of training and not saying anything that could be twisted. "It doesn't look like that from back there," I said.
I nodded toward the bleachers, where a few adults were blatantly watching now. Here's what's going to happen. You three are going to take a step back. Specialist Ortega is going to walk away, and you're going to remember you're surrounded by kids, cameras, and people who know exactly what this is. Ramsey's vein in his neck twitched. He wasn't used to being called out, not in front of an audience. You don't know anything about this, old man, he said. This is between soldiers. Then act like it, I said. Let her go. For a fraction of a second, I thought he might. Just scoff, step aside, save face later. Then I saw the decision harden behind his eyes. He reached out and grabbed a fistful of my shirt. Not a punch, not even a full yank. Just that little claim, this is my space, not yours. His mistake wasn't the grip itself. It was that he did it in front of my son. From the outside, what happened next probably looked like a stumble and a scuffle. Blink and you'd miss the details. From the inside, it was 12 years of training waking up all at once. As his fingers bunched my shirt, I stepped in, not back. My left hand trapped his thumb against my chest, rotating his elbow just enough to make his balance tilt. My right hand slid to his tricep. He tried to yank me toward him. I went with it, pivoted, and turned his pull into a fall. One step, one twist, and gravity did the rest. He hit the gym floor shoulder first with a shocked grunt, trying and failing to catch himself. Dunn lunged, going for a tackle like he was back in high school football. I dropped my weight, shot my legs back, one forearm catching his shoulder, guiding him past my center line. His own momentum carried him down. His knees slammed into the floor, hands skidding out. Hayes brought her hands up, palms showing. I'm out, she blurted fast, backing away fast. I'm not in this. I'm out. Smartest move anyone made that day. Ramsey tried to rise, furious now, swinging wild from his knees. A looping punch aimed somewhere between my ribs and my jaw. I stepped outside the arc, guided his wrist just past my side with an open palm, and gave him a flat-handed shove to the chest. Not hard, not enough to break anything, just enough to put him back on his ass. 12 seconds, start to finish. Then the gym exploded with sound. Someone yelled, "Hey!" A whistle blew. A security officer in a school polo pushed through the crowd, hand near her radio. "What is going on here?" she demanded. For a beat, nobody spoke. Then Ortega stepped forward, voice shaking but clear. "Ma'am, Sergeant Ramsey and Sergeant Dunn were harassing me. They blocked my way. This parent intervened after they ignored my requests to stop. Sergeant Ramsey grabbed him first." A teacher added, "I saw him grab her. He told them to stop more than once." One of the PTA moms chimed in, her phone still pulled up. "I have video," she said. "From when they boxed her in, you can see it." Ramsey's mouth opened and closed. All that confidence, suddenly nowhere to go. The security officer looked up at the camera dome in the ceiling, then back down. "Everyone involved is going to the office, now." Her eyes flicked to me. "Sir, please stay. We're going to need your statement." Behind her, over her shoulder, I saw Noah. He wasn't scared. He wasn't even shocked. He looked relieved, like I had done exactly what he knew I would do. That was somehow heavier than all the staring adults. The rest of the day blurred into fluorescent lights and forms, statements in the principal's office, a stiff-backed MP taking notes, Ortega repeating her story 3 different ways to 3 different people. Every version had the same core. They wouldn't let me leave. I told them to stop. They grabbed him first. He didn't go further than he had to. I left details from my own statement. Didn't mention how his thumb was trapped, which way his elbow had turned, where my weight had been. No reason to teach anyone in that room more than they needed to know. By the time they let me go, my head was pounding. I picked Noah up late, offered him fast food as a bribe. He didn't ask many questions. He just watched me from the passenger seat like he was memorizing my profile. That night, after he was asleep, I stood on the back porch with a mug of coffee growing cold in my hands.
The house was small, old, paint peeling in places, but it was ours. Quiet, off the radar. Or it had been. I stared up at the patchy sky, listening to the crickets and the distant highway, and told myself it would blow over. The video would help Ortega. The witnesses would keep Ramsey from spinning it completely. Eventually, the system would chew on it and move on. I wanted to believe that. I really did. The next morning, the knock came at 6:30. Not the sloppy pounding of a neighbor, not the impatient tap of a delivery. 3 precise raps, like someone who had spent a career knocking on doors they already owned. Noah was still in bed, cartoon alarm not yet gone off. I crossed the living room quietly and opened the door just enough to see. A man in Army service uniform stood on my porch, silver eagle on his chest, ribbons in neat rows, face carved with the lines of someone who'd read too many bad reports. Behind him, a government sedan idled at the curb, driver waiting, eyes forward. "Good morning, Captain Price," he said. He didn't say sir. He didn't say mister. He went straight to the rank I'd turned my back on. I hadn't heard anyone call me that in years. "I go by Dan now," I said. "Colonel Avery," he answered. "Division Operations. May I come in?" The quiet, normal life I'd built seemed to hold its breath behind me. Boxes of cereal on the counter, Noah's sneakers in the hallway, a science project drying on the table. Part of me wanted to slam the door and lock all of it out. Another part knew it was already too late. I stepped aside. "Yeah," I said. "Come in, Colonel." The door clicked shut behind him with a soft finality that felt louder than it was. He glanced around my living room like a man taking inventory. Second-hand couch, stack of Lego sets in the corner, a framed drawing of me and Noah on the wall, stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun. "Nice place," he said. "Working on it," I answered. He didn't sit until I did, another habit you don't lose. "Let me guess," I said. "This is about yesterday. School gym, 3 idiots on the floor." "Partly," he replied. He laid a thin folder on the coffee table between us. My name was on the tab. "Been a while since anyone pulled that," I said. "I had to convince a few people we didn't need a bigger room," he said. "Some folks were very interested in seeing this file again." I kept my face neutral. "I left the game, Colonel. Papers signed. Clearances closed. I fix air conditioners now." "And rescued a medic in front of a few hundred witnesses," he said. "Clean technique, controlled escalation, 12 seconds, 3 NCOs down, 0 broken bones. Very efficient for an HVAC guy." I shrugged. Old instincts. Wrong day, wrong idiots. His eyes sharpened. Wrong for who? He opened the folder. I saw glimpses of my past in flashes. Unit designations, operation names reduced to acronyms, lines of text blacked out like someone had taken a marker to my life. "Captain Daniel Price," he read. "Offensive cyber operations, joint taskings, classified compartments. Early resignation after an incident that is not very clearly described here." "There's a reason for that," I said. "I'm sure there is," he replied. "Unfortunately, some of the people who remember those reasons also remember what you can do, and now they've seen video of you moving like that again." "So they send you," I said. "Why not a phone call or a letter I can throw away?" He looked toward the hallway where Noah's door was half closed. "Because you have a son," he said quietly. "And people who only see tools might decide to use that fact to get what they want. I'd rather we talk before it gets to that." I tensed. "If this is a threat, it's a warning," he cut in. "Not from me, from the way this machine works. You know it as well as I do." I hated that he was right. "What do they want?" I asked. He slid another photo from the folder. Grainy surveillance, printed too many times. A man outside a building holding a laptop bag. Forgettable face, forgettable jacket. The name underneath wasn't forgettable at all. "Mark Handley," he said. "Goes by a few aliases. One particular call sign I believe you'll recognize." My stomach went cold. Switchback. He watched my reaction like a doctor watches a pulse. "You chased him before." "We hunted him," I said. 4 years, 3 continents,
Every time we got close, somebody's lights went out. Literally. Power grids, hospital networks, banking systems. He sold access to whoever could pay. "And you thought he was dead," he said. "We were told he was. A lot of people died for that probably." He nodded once. "Well, probably was wrong. He's here, stateside, working through a civilian contractor attached to this base's network. On paper, he's just another outside systems guy doing optimization. In reality," he tapped the photo, "in reality, he's building something inside our infrastructure. If he finishes it, someone flips a switch in another country, and suddenly this entire region becomes a stress test. Traffic, power, emergency services, base operations, all of it." "And you can't handle that with your current teams," I said. "Oh, we can handle parts of it," he replied. "But he knows our playbook. He's built his career on dancing around it. What he doesn't know is that the man who almost cornered him before is living in a rented house 15 minutes from base, pretending to be a regular dad." His gaze flicked to the drawing on the wall. "You have two options," he said. "You can tell me to get out. Someone else will be brought in. They'll follow procedure. Maybe they get him. Maybe they spook him and he breaks something on the way out. Either way, your name goes back on a list in a building you don't like to think about." "And the other option?" I asked. "You help," he said simply. "Quietly, no uniform, no reactivation. We give you a window into the mirrored environment. You find his footprint, and you help us catch him touching something we can take to court. You do what you've already proven you can do. Step in before the wrong people get hurt." I let the silence sit between us. Birds outside, the low idle of the sedan's engine, the faint creak of the house settling. "What's the catch?" I asked. He didn't flinch. "You already know it. Once you do this, you're on the radar again. Not front and center, more like highlighted in the margins. A name people remember when things go wrong." "And my kid?" I asked. His voice softened just a fraction. "Do you think I came here to put him at risk?" he said. "I came here to keep other people from using him as leverage. I'm offering you a deal that's as clean as this can be." "Then it comes with conditions," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "Specialist Ortega," I said. "The medic they've been burying in paperwork. You fix her situation. Not just we'll look into it. I want her complaints taken seriously. I want the guys who went after her to feel something other than mild embarrassment." "It's not that simple," he automatically said. "It's never is," I replied. "But you walked into my living room asking for my help because you know I can do something your teams can't. That tells me you have pull. Use it." He studied me for a long moment. "Her name came up when we reviewed the incident," he admitted. "Pattern of complaints, pattern of being dismissed, the kind of pattern I don't like to see." "So change it," I said. "You're asking me to walk back into a world I left for my son's sake. The least you can do is not let a decent soldier get crushed for telling the truth." He exhaled slowly. "I can't promise you a specific punishment for anyone," he said. "That's not how this works. But I can promise you this. Her record gets scrubbed of problem child. Her complaints get investigated properly, and nobody sweeps that gym incident under a rug. If I fail at that, you don't owe me a damn thing." I weighed him. The way he sat, the fact he'd come himself instead of sending a captain, the tired honesty in his eyes. It wasn't perfect, nothing in our world ever is, but it was a start. "Fine," I said. "You get her out of under that thumb, I'll help you cut off the hand above it." He gave me a look that was part respect, part relief. "I'll have a terminal set up for you in a secure office," he said, standing. "Read-only mirror of the contractor environment. No paper trail with your name on it." He paused at the doorway. "And Price," he added, "whatever you think about yourself now, there are worse things than being remembered for doing the right thing when you didn't have to." He left before I could answer. The house felt smaller with him gone, quieter and louder at the same time. I stood in the living room looking at the folder with my name on it and the closed door to Noah's room, and realized that I'd already made my choice. The secure office was a windowless box off an older admin hallway, the kind of room nobody misses if it disappears from the floor plan. They'd left a laptop on a folding table, cables taped down, nothing personal in sight. Read-only mirror, the tech who dropped me off said. Traffic, logs, no direct control. Think of it like watching a live stream of the system from the balcony. Who else has access? I asked. 2 analysts both need to know. You're the only one with this specific view. Auditor's dance starts tomorrow. You've got today to get your bearings. When he left, the silence settled in. I sat down, cracked my knuckles, and opened the console. It didn't look much like much at first, just lines and lines of time-stamped entries. Normal stuff, updates, maintenance calls, scheduled tasks. But you don't hunt someone like Switchback by staring at the obvious. You look for the things that almost disappear into the noise. I let my eyes blur and focused on patterns. Every 10 minutes, a small pulse of data left one segment of the network. Wrong destination range, wrong signature. Too regular to be random, too quiet to be legitimate. "Hello, old friend," I murmured. I followed the trail through a maze of IP addresses until it ended at a commercial data center just off base. On paper, it belonged to a bland analytics company with a forgettable name, the kind that uses stock photos and says solutions a lot. They had an office in a glass and steel box not far from the highway. I stared at the satellite view for a long moment, then closed a laptop. This part the colonel hadn't asked me to do. It was the part I knew I couldn't skip. The next morning, after I dropped Noah at school and watched him vanish into the sea of backpacks, I didn't head to a service call. I drove into the city instead. The office building looked like every other corporate hive. Too much glass, too much metal. A cafe in the lobby selling $5 coffee and $7 muffins. I went in wearing jeans and a polo shirt with a fake logo that looked real enough. Regional systems support. Laptop bag over my shoulder, clipboard in hand. Nobody stops a guy who looks like he's just there to fix someone else's computer. I bought a coffee I didn't want and took a seat where I could see the elevators. People came and went. Badges, lanyards, door swipes. Then he walked out. Different hair than the grainy photo. Glasses, a little heavier than he'd been the last time I'd seen images of him. But the posture was the same. Weight slightly forward, like he was always ready to bolt. Eyes that swept the room without seeming to. The confidence of someone who thinks he's finally out of reach. He ordered tea, made a small joke to the barista, then turned toward the seating area. For a heartbeat, his gaze brushed over me. I kept my eyes on my phone, watching him in the reflection of the dark screen instead. If there was recognition, he hid it well. He took a call, glanced up at the ceiling once, then headed for the elevators with that unhurried walk of a man who believes the building belongs to him. I didn't follow. I'd seen enough. It was him, and he was comfortable. That was dangerous. Back in the secure office, I sank into the chair and went to work. I watched his traffic dance. Once the routine security audit notice went out to the contractor, Avery's idea of shaking the tree without setting it on fire, the pattern changed. The once slow pulses sped up. Packets grew larger. He was trying to move things, hide things before anyone could look too closely. In the mirrored environment, I saw a script spool up, labeled like a normal diagnostics job, scheduled just off the usual times, pointed at systems it had no business touching. I traced it. It reached into switching equipment feeding the area around base, traffic control, some municipal routing, a hospital segment further down the line. Nothing that would explode, everything that could quietly kill if twisted at the wrong moment. So, I did the only thing I could from this distance. I stepped into the space between what he thought he controlled and what he actually would. I adjusted pointers, shadowed commands, let his script appear to install exactly where he wanted, into a quarantined sandbox the audit team had prepared. In his view, he would see confirmation messages, no errors, green lights across the board. In reality, his newfound God mode would give him control over a simulation we could turn off with a switch. You don't always beat people like that by slamming doors in their faces. Sometimes you beat them by letting them walk, confidently, into a room with mirrored walls. "Can you lock him down?" Avery asked over the secure line we'd arranged. "I can dull his teeth," I said. "You want the bite on record, you still have to put cuffs on him in the real world." "Then we move today," he replied. "Audit team is on site in an hour." "Tell them to act normal," I said. "The more nervous they look, the more likely he panics and throws a tantrum in the wrong system." I wasn't there when they took him. I watched it unfold through two lenses: the steady crawl of logs on my screen and a grainy security feed from the lobby Avery patched in for me. The audit team went into the contractor's office looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Clipboards, checklists, mild annoyance. Upstairs, the logs shimmered. Switchback, that's what I still thought of him as, probed his new toys. He sent a test command toward a cluster that controlled traffic signals. In his reality, the lights obeyed. In mine, the simulation flickered red, then back. He tried another system, an emergency routing line. Same result. His world said yes. The real world said no. You could almost feel the moment he realized something was off. His pattern went jagged, more commands, more tests, a hint of frantic where there had been smooth confidence. Downstairs, on the lobby feed, I saw Avery's people. 2 suits, 1 plainclothes, security moving with the easy calm of men going to a meeting they already knew the outcome of. They reached the conference room door, opened it, closed it behind them. I couldn't hear the words, but I'd heard enough like them. "Mr. Handley, we have some questions. We have a warrant. Please step away from the keyboard." A minute later, the door opened again. He walked out between them, wrists together, jacket pulled just enough to hide the cuffs. For the first time that day, his face showed something like surprise. Not fear, not yet. Just the disbelief of a man who'd finally hit a wall he hadn't seen coming. On my screen, his connection dropped. The unnatural traffic stopped. The system's heartbeat returned to normal. "You got him," I told the empty room. Avery came to see me that evening. Same folder, new papers. This will be months before the public sees any of this, if they ever do. But the important part is simple. He's in custody, we have enough for charges, and his toys are neutralized. "And the things he already built?" I asked. "Any surprises left?" "There are always surprises," he said, "but far fewer than there were yesterday." He placed a thinner folder on top of my file. "Specialist Ortega," he said. I opened it. The language changed. Her complaints weren't framed as perceived issues anymore. They were documented, corroborated, supported by witness statements and video. At the bottom of one memo was a line I didn't expect to see. "Recommend recognition from moral courage in reporting misconduct." "And Ramsey?" I asked. "Relieved of his current duties pending proceedings," Avery said. "Done, too. Hayes is cooperating. She's not blameless, but she's not them." It wasn't cinematic justice. No dramatic courtroom scene, no viral video of someone being marched out in disgrace. But it was pressure in the right direction. "You kept your word," I said. "I told you I would," he replied. "Don't get used to it. The machine is bigger than either of us. Some days you push it an inch. That's a win." He closed my old file. "For what it's worth," he added, "once this is filed away again, nobody has official reason to bother you. Unofficially, people talk. Your name will come up in certain rooms. I can't stop that." "I know how it works," I said. He studied me with something like curiosity. "Do you miss it?" he asked. I thought about the flicker in my chest when the patterns lined up, the clean snap of catching an invisible threat before it could hurt anyone. "Parts of it," I admitted. "Not enough to go back." He nodded like that was the answer he'd expected. "Then don't," he said. "Stay the HVAC guy. Show up at school assemblies. And if we ever come knocking again, you get to decide all over whether you open the door." He left me with both folders. Old life, new one. I put the old one in the back of a closet with tax records and broken charges. Some ghosts are better left between cardboard and dust. When I pulled up to the school the next day, Noah was already waiting on the curb, backpack slung low, sneakers scuffing the pavement. He climbed into the truck and stared at me for a second. "You look tired," he said. "Long day at work," I replied. "Technical stuff. You'd be bored." "Did you help people?" he asked. It was the same question he'd asked before, but now it came with a weight he didn't quite understand. "Yes," I said. "I helped some people who have no idea anything almost went wrong." He nodded slowly, satisfied with that. We drove in silence for a while. At a stoplight, he spoke again. "Some of the kids were talking," he said. "They said their parents heard that those soldiers got in trouble, the ones from the assembly." "Is that so?" I asked. He squinted out the windshield. "They said one of them might have to leave," he continued. "They sounded happy about it." "What do you think?" I asked. He thought hard before answering. "I think if you make someone feel scared all the time and then you get in trouble, that's fair," he said finally, "even if you don't go to jail or whatever." "That's pretty much the grown-up version too," I said. The light turned green. We rolled forward. After a minute, he asked the question that hurt more than anything had in days. "Are you going to have to go away again?" I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. "No," I said. "Not for this, not now. If anyone ever tries to make me, they're going to have a very long argument before they get to you." He seemed to relax a millimeter. "So you're still just my dad?" "Just your dad," I agreed, "who happens to know a few things." He smiled at that. When we got home, life flooded back in. Homework at the table, dishes, something half-burned in the oven, a forgotten permission slip. At one point, while he was bent over a worksheet, he paused. "Hey, Dad." "Yeah?" "Yesterday, when you asked me to help her," he said.
Were you scared? The truth was lodged somewhere between my ribs. "Yes," I said. "I was. A little." "Then why'd you do it?" "Because you asked," I said, "and because it was the right thing. Sometimes being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It just means you move anyway." He nodded like he'd tuck that away for later. He went back to his homework. I went back to rinsing plates. Outside, the world turned the way it always does. Traffic lights cycled. Phones buzzed. Servers hummed in cold rooms I'd never see. Somewhere, in a secure facility, a man named Handley was learning what it felt like to finally hit a wall. Somewhere else, a medic was getting a memo that vindicated every sleepless night she'd spent wondering if speaking up had been a mistake. And in our little house, my son was coloring in a picture for art class. On the page, he'd drawn a small stick figure and a taller one standing between it and some jagged shapes with angry faces. He colored the taller figure's shirt the same faded blue as my work jacket. I watched him for a long moment. For years, I'd tried to bury the person I'd been. Soldier, operator, ghost. Now, maybe the job wasn't to bury him. Maybe it was to make sure that whatever I'd done, whatever I could do, I kept choosing this. The kitchen table, the drawings, the quiet knock on a door I opened on my own terms. Those 12 seconds in the school gym had exposed who I really was to a room full of strangers. More importantly, they'd exposed it to my son. And from now on, every choice I made had to live up to the look on his face when he said, "Dad, can't you help her?" I wasn't just the HVAC guy. I wasn't just the name in a blacked-out file. I was the man he decided I was in that moment. Nothing classified about that. And that was the kind of mission worth staying for.